Good morning and welcome to Sips of Sanity. I'm Kelly.
Good morning, I'm Karen.
And welcome to Patreon. This is wildly exciting.
Yeah, very.
Ready?
Eh?
I said ready?
I am ready.
Yeah, we've been itching for a long time.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to run Sips of Sanity like normal. So let's start off with today's show. What are we talking about?
Today we're going to be continuing what we did 2 months ago in July of 2019, talking about anger. I just think it's super important for people to hear all of the different types of things that can go with or be part of why we feel angry. And something comes to mind, Kelly, an example of two people. One person, two brothers that I know. One brother is not able to explain or express any kind of anger other than just explosive. So he just responds to everything in the same way. And if you ask him what's wrong, he responds in the same way, that he's angry. And he thinks he's communicating. He thinks that's great. And his other brother would be able to say things like, I'm disappointed. He would be able to say, I'm sad.
So
I've lost control.
He's able to articulate the many faces of anger.
Yeah. And he's able to sit there because of that and then be able to start problem solving it. But also, the people who are listening to that are able to deal with it on a different level.
Of course.
So if they're hearing, I'm disappointed, oh, well, what occurred? What are you disappointed? What were your expectations? People are able to prompt him to think about it and give him assistance versus his brother who just responds in anger and lashes out at people. Mm-hmm. My needs aren't being met. And that's the whole thing that angers him is my needs aren't being met. Mm-hmm. Doesn't know in what area or that it might just be emotionally based. That's it. Mm-hmm. Just emotionally based. Can't figure that out. And so people don't really, I'm going to say two things. They either want to help him to stop the temper tantrum, which just sometimes means do anything to shut him the hell up or get away from him. Mm-hmm. So if people go into the people-pleasing mode, they can attack him back, or they just want to treat him like a narcissist and get the hell out, mm-hmm. which increases it, right?
Well, yeah, it doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, it escalates everything for him. And his other brother tries so hard to say, well, are you disappointed? He tries to ask him the questions, and he won't listen to any of the prompting. So he flat out refuses all attempts to increase his emotional intelligence. Flat out.
Well, he's not in any of our tiers then, is he?
No, he would not be listening to a show like this, that's for sure. But I see that then mm-hmm. when I'm watching the news. I see that with people who are, I'll just say full of anger. Mm-hmm. I won't go into saying, this group, that group. I'll just say it's all over the place.
Yeah.
And it's constantly in our face right now in the news all over the world. So here we go. We're going to step into what we've picked about 7 or 8 more to put into the next 5 days.
Yeah. So today on day 1, we're just going to cover, I hate saying the word just because it is big. We're covering fear and anxiety.
Those are huge. Mm-hmm. And I think some people might think, wow, what do you mean anxiety and anger? But it'll be fun to explain that one to them.
Yes.
So I'm going to begin with fear and start by explaining that a lot of people can feel the fear part that drives you to anger when you feel threatened, mm-hmm. when you feel that your safety, your finances, your sexual safety, work environment safety, something is being threatened.
Mm-hmm. Your relationship.
Oh,
right? When we feel a threat of loss, that we're out of control and we risk losing something, then we can go straight into the reaction or response of anger, but not understand that we are actually fearful.
I think that's huge to be able to say that to a partner or to be able to identify it so you don't end up behaving so badly that you create the job loss that you feared. Mm-hmm. Because quite often we can go into that. We fear losing the job. So we blow up, we get explosive, we react. And then the boss pulls us in and says, you blew up the client.
Your poor behavior loses the thing that you were afraid of losing.
Yeah. You lose people's respect. You can lose your job. You can lose your health at this point because that might drive you to such high levels of stress that you're in a hospital, that can seriously escalate if you don't just take the time to recognize that what you're afraid of losing or what you're afraid, like how you perceive a threat.
I think in a job situation, a very relatable example is when someone comes in, a new person, and you are around them as they're training. And if they have similar qualifications or hold a similar job title to you, you may sit there and train them but be mean. Train them but withhold a few pieces of information so they aren't as good as you or they don't know as much as you. And we do it out of a place of anger. We think we are angry. But really, we're afraid that we're being replaced or that we are replaceable.
Or not as valuable or not going to be treated special anymore.
Yeah. And I mean, we can walk into our boss's office and say, hey, can I just clarify that I'm training this person to be an addition to the team? Because right now I'm seeing too many similarities and I'm very afraid I might be losing my job. Is that valid? That can be a very articulated conversation where the boss can put your mind at ease or not. They get to decide how they react to your questions. But if you're walking in going, well, why am I training them? Well, why is it my job? That's not in my job description. Then we're just responding with anger.
That's a good example because if we start to not train them properly and then the boss sees that we're purposely not doing it, that's going to now take us and put us into a position, if we weren't in one before now, it's going to put us into a position of being seen as replaceable.
Yes, that's a great point. And the other one that I wanted to make is that when you only respond out of anger, when you don't do the work in your head to figure out what the actual emotion is that's underlying it, you take away your own choices.
Absolutely. You refuse to see them. Even if the boss offers them to you, or the wife, or the husband, or the partner, whoever, if they could present tons of choices to you, and you'll block everything. And that ends up turning into a desire to have an unhealthy form of control because of the fear/anger and what it's doing. That cycle can be like a snowball that turns into a huge issue so quickly.
Yeah, because maybe we do train them well. Maybe we people please the shit out of them because we're so angry and afraid. And then we go home and we're mean to our family because we've spent 8 hours training someone we're afraid is going to replace us. But I've got to be the nice, sweet person at work. But I'm going to shit on everyone when I get home because I'm afraid about what's happening in my job. These things spill over into other areas of your life. You can't isolate anger. Not if you're emotionally unintelligent.
Right. That's so good. That's so good for people to hear. Because some people really do believe that they can control their anger. They think that they know exactly where they're placing it. And they really don't understand that even if you're not yelling at all of the other kids, you're just yelling at one. And I know we've done shows on this before. If you're spewing your anger at one person in the family and not the others, you're still training everybody else to respond to you. And you're still going to set it up that at some point as they adult in life, they're either going to confront you or they're going to have to deal with the fact that you did this to their sibling and the hurt and anger that they do feel, and the fear that they feel when it's their turn, when you turn on them next.
So do you want to move to anxiety?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Because a lot of us can sit in nervousness, anxiousness, have palpitating hearts, feel like we're having a heart attack, and not understand that we're angry.
Well, Kel, there are so many different types of anxiety and reasons for it that maybe for the purposes of this podcast, because it's the under 15 show or under 15 minutes show, why don't we talk about a type of anxiety where the person that you're dealing with or talking to is incongruent in what they're saying and doing.
Okay.
And that can raise your anxiety because there's no congruency.
I was going to go in a different direction, but okay.
Oh, see, because this goes in the area of where you're being gaslit and why that, when dealing with somebody who gaslights you, would create anxiety in you.
See, I think we could hammer out a lot of different examples of anxiety, and maybe done with the intention that if people listen to it and go, oh shit, that's me, then they could know that they need help or they need to address it instead of us addressing it right now. Right? Because right now, this intention of our podcast is to identify that you're actually feeling angry and the type.
Right.
Right? And my brain went to, when you said this, that if I'm incongruent myself, I might not necessarily be being gaslit.
Oh,
I may be the person that's decided to do the gaslighting.
sure.
And I also think about someone who has anxiety. Go ahead.
Wait, I want you to finish that. If you're the one that's incongruent with yourself, you think one thing or want one thing and do the opposite, and you're gaslighting yourself, that in itself makes you angry.
Yeah.
And it makes you anxious. And that's the bottom line for And that's the bottom line for a lot of people that are people pleasers and don't understand why it's unhealthy.
That's good. I also originally went to the idea of a lot of people who on a daily basis never feel enough, and that the running story in their head is, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not fast enough, I'm not efficient enough, whatever that fill in the blank enough is. We run a high level of anxiety, and really the anger has all turned inward, right? We're angry at ourselves for our belief system.
Yep.
And carrying out that belief system because we keep telling ourselves it's true.
Oh, yeah, because your intuition, your inner knowing,
Tells you otherwise.
tells you the truth. And then your ego wants to tell you the lie. And it's the ego that makes your intuitiveness or your spirit or your soul angry with you.
Good. So
That's where I refer to it as Abby, and I tell her that there's an adult in the room, meaning my spirit, my intuition, my soul, and I'm going to adult here. And that she's not going to get away with this shit.
good. So if you've identified yourself in today's show, decide that you're not going to get away with this shit. Walk into a therapist's office, book an appointment, and say, I now understand I'm angry because I'm anxious all the time.
Yeah.
I now understand that I need to deal with anger because I live in fear constantly.
Right.
That's a good place to start.
Yeah. Then your therapist can sit there and say, okay, let's go through things. Let's go through experiences, and we're going to help you identify the fear at the bottom of all of this.
Yeah.
The core belief. And then we're going to give you some tools so you can go out and practice a different kind of thinking.
Excellent.
Okay, good. Well, this was really jam-packed.
Sips of Sanity always is. But the intention of Patreon is so that you can listen to the shows. And if you're joining in the higher tiers, you've actually got follow-along worksheets, printable questions, reflections, and tools to actually walk yourself through this process instead of just going, oh, fuck, that's me.
Yeah.
Right? So you can commit to as much work as you want to or as little. And move at your own pace, I think is the point. Because you could sit here today and go, I don't think I'm ready for that. I think I need to listen to this a little bit more. And then at another point decide, okay, I'm ready to do the work. And at any point, we're here to walk you through it.
Perfect.
Okay. So if you have questions or comments about today's show, you can email us at info@bysarlo.com. Otherwise, we're back out tomorrow with another show. But now that we're on Patreon, show 1 is free. You've got to move to Patreon with us to listen to shows 2 through 5. And you can do that by going to patreon.com and searching bysarlo.com, or we will put up the posts in all of our social media.